Hare Krishna, welcome everybody. So, Krishna Dasa here. Today we are going to continue our journey of the 15th chapter. We are going to cover slokas 15.7 to 15.15, and you will see that they are extremely powerful and very potent. And if we can internalize even this set of slokas, I think it will have a huge transformative impact on all of us. So, as always, before we begin, I'll say the prayers to Guru and God, and I'll play the Guru mantra. ओम अज्ञानतिमिरन्दस्य ज्ञानाञ्जनाशलाकया चक्षुरुन्मिलितमेन तस्मै श्रीगुरुवे नमः। ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। हरे कृष्णा।
गुरुर्ब्रह्मा गुरुर्विष्णु गुरुर्देवो महेश्वरः गुरुर्साक्षात् परब्रह्मा तस्मै श्री गुरुवे नमः। तस्मै श्री गुरुवे नमः। तस्मै श्री गुरुवे नमः।
Hare Krishna. Okay. So today again, Sandeep ji has very gracefully volunteered to recite 15.7 to 15.15. So go ahead, Sandeep ji.
Hare Krishna. Thank you, Guruji, for this. We'll start from 15:7. ममैवांशो जीवलोके जीवभूतसनातनः मनुष्यस्थानीन्द्रियाणि प्रकृतिस्थानि कर्षति शरीरं यदवाप्नोति यच्चाप्युत्क्रामतीश्वरः गृहीत्वैतानि संयाति वायुर्गन्धानि वाशयात् श्रोत्रं चक्षुस्पर्शनं च रसनं घ्राणमेव च अधिष्ठाय मनश्चायं विषयानुपसेवते उत्क्रामन्तं स्थितं वापि भुञ्जानां वा गुणान्वितं विमूढानानुपश्यन्ति पश्यन्ति ज्ञानचक्षुषः यतन्तो योगिनश्चैनं पश्यन्त्यात्मन्यवस्थितं यतन्तोऽप्यकृतात्मानो नैनं पश्यन्त्यचेतसः यदादित्यगतं तेजो जगद्भासयतेऽखिलं यच्चन्द्रमसि यच्चाग्नौ तत्तेजो विद्धि मामकम् गामावेश्य च भूतानि धारयाम्यहमोजसा पुष्णामि चौषधी सर्वाः सोमो भूत्वा रसात्मकः अहं वैश्वानरो भूत्वा प्राणिनां देहमाश्रितः प्राणापानसमायुक्तः पचाम्यन्नं चतुर्विधम् सर्वस्य चाहं हृदि सन्निविष्टो मत्तस्मृतिर्ज्ञानमपोहनं च वेदैश्च सर्वैरहमेव वेद्यो वेदान्तकृत्वेदविदेव चाहम्।
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you so much, Sandeep ji. Beautiful. So, as discussed in the opening verses,
Guruji, shall I? The English version?
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, please go ahead. I got a little carried away by this beautiful rendition of Sandeep ji. So, go ahead, Deepa ji, go ahead.
Hare Krishna. 15.7. The living entity in the world of being is indeed an eternal fragment of mind. Bound by material nature, it struggles with the mind and the five senses. 15.8 Just as the wind takes the fragrance from the source and carries it from place to place, so does the living entity, embodied soul, which is the controller of its body, carry the senses from one body to another as it leaves the old one and enters the new one. 15.9 Presiding over the ear, eye, touch, tongue, and nose, indeed, along with the mind, this living entity engages with sense objects. 15.10 The deluded individual fails to perceive the soul as it departs or remains or experiences the objects of the senses, but those who possess the eye of knowledge can behold it. 15.11 Striving yogis are able to see this soul situated in the body, but those who lack self-discipline and purity of mind, despite their efforts, cannot see it due to their unawakened consciousness. 15.12 Know that the radiance in the sun, which illuminates the entire world, as well as that in the moon and in fire, is indeed my own splendor. 15.13 Permeating the earth, I nourish and sustain all living beings by my energy. Becoming the sap-giving moon, I nourish all plants with my essence. 15.14 I, as the digestive fire, Vaishvanara, reside in the bodies of all living beings, united with the life airs, prana and apana. I digest the four kinds of food. 15.15 I am situated in the heart of all living beings. From me arises memory, knowledge, and forgetfulness. Indeed, I alone am to be known through all the Vedas. I am the originator of the Vedanta, and I am the knower of the Vedas. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you. Thank you so much. So, as we discussed earlier, this 15th chapter is literally a treasure house of spiritual wisdom. And you will see that Krishna will unravel the mystery of the soul and the soul's identity and the connection of the soul to the Supreme and the path to liberation. All of these profound topics is unraveling here in these slokas. And this specific set of slokas that Sandeep ji just recited and Deepa ji read the translation, they are shedding light specifically on how the soul wanders through the cycle of birth and death, and how the soul carries the mind and sense with them, and how ultimately you need the grace and guidance of the Guru and the God to break free from this cycle. See, so what we have to keep in mind is Krishna has really tried to make this divine knowledge accessible and also engaging, because his language is very engaging if you see how he is explaining these concepts. Okay? And it's not just meant to be abstract, theoretical concept. The way Krishna has explained, this is very deeply relevant to our everyday experience. That is the speciality. So what Krishna said 5,000 years ago, even today, it is relevant in our everyday lives, and it is going to be relevant no matter how much, in future we go. That is the aspect of this Sanatana Dharma that is impacting, which is eternal knowledge. And so what are the few things we are going to focus? There are a few recurring themes. So first we are going to talk about the concept that soul is divine, eternal, but still it is bound by material nature. And how because of the mind and senses it gets into bondage. The second is the soul's journey. We are going to talk about that, how the soul journeys from body to body. The third is how ignorance binds us and it blinds us. So ignorance binds us and it also blinds us, so we cannot see our true self. Then the fourth, we are going to talk about the soul's relationship with the Supreme, and this is how we can develop vairagyam. You remember the term we used, even kaivalyam. So once we have done And once you have developed in Vairagyam, once you have realized the ultimate truth, then you get into a state of Kaivalyam. The fifth is recognizing the Supreme and how the Supreme is the ultimate sustainer of all beings. And finally, we are going to learn about the importance of purification. Why does Krishna emphasize on purifying the mind? So, by discussing these things, we will go step by step. And that way, we are going to now try and go deep into the concept of why the mind and senses, why they play such a powerful role in shaping our destiny. And how we can understand and how we can use this knowledge to overcome this bondage. Though Krishna is guiding us, and I'm going to try and do my best to convey his message as accurately as possible while also simplifying it as much as possible without losing the essence. Okay, so one of the key teachings in Bhagavad Gita is that although we are individual souls, we are all eternal fragments of that one divine supreme. So although we are spiritual in essence, we find ourselves trapped in the material bodies and material minds. So now again, this concept may seem kind of abstract. We are talking about, oh, we are spiritual, but then we are in bondage, and all that sounds very conceptual and very theoretical. But but in practical senses, we just need to understand that our consciousness is kind of providing us this sense of individuality, but then that itself originates from a spiritual source, and that spiritual source does not die when the body dies. So this is what Krishna is explaining. So in many of our scriptures, you will see the same concept where they are comparing the soul to a spark. So they'll say that the soul is like a spark, and you all know that a spark is the same as fire. Like it is same as the candle fire. The candle fire is same as your fire that cooks your food, and that fire is same as the big forest fire, and that is the same as a much bigger fire that can consume the whole planet, and so on and so forth. So the idea is the spark is the same nature as fire, the same quality as fire, but it does not have the same magnitude. It does not have the same magnitude or same quantity of energy as that divine source of the fire. So, in other words, the potency is not the same. Although it's like, touching the ocean, and now there is a drop of that ocean in your fingertip. Now you can say that this is not different from the ocean, and you are right. But you can also say that this is not the ocean, and that's also right. You see, because that drop is qualitatively the same as the ocean, but it is not quantitatively the same, because you cannot go and, have a ship sail through that drop of water. See? So that is the same difference Krishna is also trying to help us understand, saying that you are a tiny spark of me. So the emphasis should be that, yes, we are similar, and we should also have the humility to understand that we are still infinitesimally smaller. And that is why we say liberation means this spark has to go and unite again with the fire. And once that happens, then you are free. See, that is the whole idea. And you'll see the same concept in Upanishads also. Does anybody remember the example we had taken from the Upanishad about the two birds? One, okay. Ashaji, what was the two bird analogy?
So there are two birds, and one bird is, busy in eating the fruits on the tree, and the another bird is waiting for that bird, another bird, so that it can share the knowledge.
Excellent. Very nice. Very nice. And this is, if you want, you can take a note. This is Mandukya Upanishad 3.1.1. So you can do your own Google search and read the whole commentary on that. So you can search for Shankaracharya's commentary on Mandukya Upanishad and this 3.1.1, and you will see the whole explanation he has given there. But what Ashaji said is pretty much in essence the same thing. So the idea is one bird is busy eating the fruits, enjoying the fruits, eating the fruits. whereas the other bird is just observing. And this bird has to just turn to that other bird, and it will get the divine wisdom and become free. That is the kind of idea. So what are we trying to say? We are trying to say that we are like the divine, but we are not yet completely free. So somebody may ask this question, somebody may ask this question on, if the soul is inherently divine, then why do we suffer? Like, if we are qualitatively the same as God, then why do we suffer? Why do we feel so bound by our limitations? Why do we feel impacted by fear? Why do we get impacted by material attachments? So many questions come. People have these questions. And Krishna's teachings are actually offering a clear answer. So we just have to have a little bit of focus, and if you pay attention, you will get the answer to this in these set of shlokas. Because basically Krishna is saying that we are struggling. These are all material problems. Problems like fear, and problems like attachment. They are all material problems. They are not the problems that are inherently spiritual, correct? So why? Because Krishna says, because of our entanglement with the mind and senses. That's how he is explaining. So he talks about the 6 instruments. What are the 6 instruments? Sight, hearing, smell, taste, touch, and the mind. He says that these 6 instruments, they are the ones who are dragging the soul through the various experiences that we have in the material world. So the problem, what is the problem? Is if these instruments are guided, who is operating these instruments? If these instruments are guided by passion, which is Rajoguna, for example, then the soul is getting dragged into the turbulence of samsara, the cycle of birth and death and janama, mrityu, jara, vyadi. That is because now the instruments are being operated by that gunas. See, as per the teachings of Vedanta, the body is like the gross covering, while the mind and intelligence, they are regarded as subtle coverings. They are still coverings. Okay, so we have the gross body, we have the subtle body, and the mind is also part of that subtle body. And the concept is the soul is encased within these layers. And our physical senses, they are gathering information constantly from the outside world. It's constant. Whatever we hear, whatever we see, whatever we touch, whatever we smell, constantly it's like, inputs, triggers that keep coming in. And it is feeding those to the mind. This is how Vedanta explains. He says the senses, they are gathering all of this, data, and they keep feeding the mind with it. And then the mind is going to process and interpret it. Now, if the mind is not trained, if the mind is not trained, it is going to get overwhelmed. And it is going to create too many impulses that the intelligence will either struggle to manage or fail to manage properly. So senses feed all the stuff that it sees to the mind, and then the mind kind of tries to, process it, interpret it, and it is up to the intelligence to draw a conclusion, but the intelligence also sometimes will falter if the mind is also getting overwhelmed. So this is how the whole mechanism is explained, For example, I always give this very simple example. Like, today you have a radio, and you put it on FM or AM, and you rotate the knobs, and you will be surprised that there is so much stuff around you, because the radio is not creating that content. The radio is just, translating what is around you already. Now just imagine if your radio did not have ability to perfectly go to one frequency. What's going to happen? A fraction of a second you'll hear a song, fraction of a second you're going to hear somebody talk and blah, 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 and then like what? I mean, you're not going to be able to make sense of it. It's just going to make you troubled. The same way, so much exists are all around us. Our senses are busy catching everything, grasping everything. Vivid Bharati also, sports match also, somebody's talk show also, soap opera, everything the senses are, capturing all the information and they are feeding the mind. And, so what is the message here? The message is basically the mind is not yet trained properly. Because of that, there is constant distraction based on these waves of emotional stuff, attachments, aversions, conditioning. So much is going on, So why are we placing so much importance on the mind? Because the mind is directly linked to our senses. And it is the sense that feeds the ego as well. So whenever you say, I want this, or whenever you say, I am afraid of this, or I this, I that, who is talking? Who is that I? Who is that I that says I'm hurt? Who is that I that says I am angry? Who is that I that says I'm afraid? That is pretty much the combination of mind and your ego. The false ego, I would say. So that is what is experiencing, and it thinks it is you, And because of this, what happens? Because we are so overwhelmed, we forget. We forget our deeper essence as a spiritual being. We land up believing. Because we are also overwhelmed by these temporary circumstances and material, disturbances. And that is what causes this endless cycle of desire and frustration and attachment and anxieties. See, it's a rule. The rule says, as long as you are running behind any desire, disappointment is guaranteed. Okay, they say that there are no guarantees in life, but that is a half a truth. The full truth is, pain is guaranteed, disappointment is guaranteed, frustration is guaranteed, anxieties are guaranteed. As long as we identify with the false ego, as long as our mind is not refined, we are going to go through all of these pains. And Krishna is saying that is the cause of bondage. That is what is keeping the soul, trapped. Does anybody remember Krishna spoke about how the mind is our best friend and mind can also be the worst enemy? Did we talk about that in the Bhagavad Gita? We did. Okay, so I'm happy that everybody thinks we did. Okay, maybe one person remembers where we did, which chapter. How many people remember which chapter it was? Oh, okay. We still have some hands. I'm happy. Okay. Okay. So, Sulata ji, looks like you probably remember the shloka also.
No, 6.5 and 6.6.
See? Applause. Big round of applause. Excellent. So there Sri Krishna had said, Bandhuratma atmanah tasya yene atma eva atmana jitah anatmanastu shatrutve vartet atma eva shatruvad, where he said that, Bandhu is friend. So he's saying, Bandhur atma is self, atmanah, of the self. Yena means whom? Atma eva, indeed, atmana, by the self, jitah, conquered. So Bandhu, he starts with the shloka with saying Bandhu, which is friend, and he ends that first line by saying Jitah, Mana Jitah. So he's saying, for one who has controlled the mind becomes your best friend. And in the next line he says, Anatmanah, of one without self-control, however, Shatrutve, enmity, and Shatruvat, like an enemy. So in the second line, he starts with Anatmanas, which is one without self-control, and he ends that with Shatruvat. That says the same mind then becomes your greatest enemy. So where is the emphasis? The emphasis, he's not saying the mind is the enemy. He's saying an uncontrolled mind. So if you don't control the mind, because the moment somebody tells us that the mind is our enemy, then the immediate question will come, then why did God create mind? I mean, why would God create an enemy for us? You know? So that is the whole concept here, is that the mind is powerful. The mind has a purpose. And the mind can be your best friend. But that depends on you. That depends on us. If we can control the mind, it will be our best friend. But if we don't, it's going to become our worst enemy. Just like fire. You know, if you know how to use fire, it is an extremely strong ally. You know, it can disinfect things, it can cook for us, it can provide light for us, it can provide warmth to us. It's such a powerful ally, but if you don't know how to use that fire, it's going to burn everything down. But is that the fault of fire? No, it is the fault of the person who is using the fire. Just like that, Krishna has made it very clear. That is why the emphasis here is on the mind, where Krishna says, if we know how to control the mind, how to purify the mind itself will help you get liberation. It is so powerful. It's such a strong friend that it will take you towards liberation. But if you don't, the same mind will keep you in bondage. You see, so it's a very empowering statement that Krishna is actually talking about here. So it's a very fascinating teaching that we can see here, and you can see that in rest of Vedanta also. What I'm calling about as fascinating is the fact that the soul, Krishna says, the soul carries the mind and the subtle senses from body to body. So whatever we call as the mind and the subtle senses, Krishna is saying that goes with us from body to body. So it's a science. We can go into a lot of details in depth also later. But for now, we just need to understand that when we die, this gross body is left behind, but there is a subtle body, and the subtle body includes the mind, and that continues the journey. See? And what goes with that subtle body? Impressions, tendencies, karmic seeds. So we spoke about sanskaras earlier. Those also go along with that subtle body. See, there is the scientists don't have any other explanation for some phenomenon that you can see even today. For example, one of the most baffling, puzzling phenomenons that has been studied even in modern times is there are people who are born blind. So in other words, they have never had eyesight since they were born. But they talk about dreams. And they describe things that they saw in the dreams. And then the question comes, but this person has never seen anything since they were born. Then where is those? Because see, for example, you see in your dream, you see an apple. And then you will say, I saw an apple. But how are you able to explain that you saw an apple? Because your eyes actually saw an apple and somebody told you that is an apple. Correct? But if your eyes never saw an apple and nobody ever told you that is an apple, then how can you see something in your dream and then say that I saw an apple? You see? So, I mean, nobody has 100% agreement on these kind of studies. These kind of studies are always full of, contradictions. But this is a fact. That some people actually, even if one person who is born blind is able to see something in the dream, that itself should, the purpose of that example is, it should make us introspect deeper on what is the mechanism, how is this happening. Or you take the more relatable phenomenon of what we fashionably call as child prodigies. There are some children who are hardly 2 or 3 years old, but they can do advanced mathematics. Or there are children who can compose music even before they enter their, secondary school. And how does that happen? There is no explanation. Because there are, that is a very provable, you have data. Even today, there are such prodigies all around us, So one of the explanations is this. The explanation is the sanskaras, the impressions, the mind, it has come from another previous birth. So they have, followed this person. That is what we need to understand here. And in 15.8, Krishna is using the analogy of wind and scent. Very beautiful analogy. So he's saying just like the wind can pick up a fragrance from a flower and take that fragrance somewhere else. And he's putting it very beautifully. Basically, if we smell a flower, the flower can be somewhere else. So how are we smelling it sitting here? That is because the wind carried the fragrance. He's saying just like that, the soul carries the mind. Such a beautiful way of explaining. So again, your habits, your attitudes, your karmic patterns, especially the karmic patterns which you have not resolved, they will definitely go with us. So this is one reason why Krishna places so much importance on purifying our consciousness. See, now I want to let you know why this is so profound for all of us. Why is this so important? Because many of us have this false notion that somehow, you will die and you will escape from all the bad things that you have done or all the negative habits that you have. Somehow we feel like, okay, you will escape from the material. For example, if you take a big loan from a bank and tomorrow you die, yes, you don't have to pay back that loan. So material things you may escape, but you're not really going to escape in the grand scheme of things. So why is that profound? Because if you have that realization, if you have that understanding, then won't you live better now? Won't we try? Now, does it make more sense why Krishna says that make the most of your current life? Because it is not just for the quality of your life now. It is not just for the quality of your current life. It is for how the experience of your soul is going to be for eternity until you get liberation. And if you can get liberation just in this birth, so much better. And this explains why we should strive for liberation in this birth. And don't postpone it. Don't say, I will maybe do it when I'm 60, I will do it when I'm 70, or maybe next birth I will have a better, because in this birth, if you find it very hard to work for liberation, and if you die with that mindset, your next birth also you're going to find it very hard only. So this knowledge is empowering, because this knowledge gives us the required motivation to do our best now. So, and we also learnt in the 14th chapter where Krishna very, very specifically said that at the time of death, if you are tamasic, if your tamoguna is predominant, then what's going to happen? What kind of a birth you're going to get? If you are in a rajoguna, what's going to happen? If you're in a, sattva guna, what's going to happen? So he has already given us all the knowledge we need. Our job is to internalize that. And, this is also something that we should understand is this grand mechanism of Prakriti that is not random. So it may seem random because we don't have this context. In Western philosophy, this is one of the biggest questions always asked. Why is it that one person is born on the streets while one person is born in a palace? How do you explain that? You see? So this is the explanation. The explanation is it's not random. At the same time, it's not some kind of cruelty either. Because it has to be seen as an opportunity for the soul to learn and evolve. And ultimately, it has to outgrow the need for that material embodiment. See, the beauty is the body needs the soul to be alive and the soul needs the body to evolve. So it is a coexistence. This is what we studied earlier. The kind of coexistence and collaboration between Prakriti and Purusha. So ultimately, the soul has to overcome the need for any kind of material embodiment. That is the whole purpose of this mechanism. Then once this knowledge becomes internalized, then we will understand why it is so important to cultivate positive, spiritual thoughts and spiritual impressions in our day-to-day life, because every action, every word, every thought That leaves an imprint on our subtle body. Nothing goes without an effect. Every thought that we have, every word we speak, every action that we take, it has an impression. It may be hidden from your neighbors, it may be hidden from your parents, but it is not hidden from your own mind. It cannot be. Okay? And your sanskaras, it will keep registering all of this. So once we realize that, then we will understand why now again another perspective for why Krishna says consistent. Do good actions, good thoughts, good practices, and be consistent. Because if you're not consistent, if you keep going back and forth, the back and forth all impressions get registered. Then it's a very difficult game. You keep going 2 steps back and then 2 steps forward, and it's never ending. And that is the whole problem. That this cycle of Janama, Mrityu, Jara, Vyadhi seems endless because of that. If you only keep going in the positive direction, then soon it will become the path has to end, and soon you will be liberated. That is why consistency is so important. So, from a spiritual standpoint, the soul is the real seat of awareness, and the mind carries the ability to remember, to dream, to imagine. And when some certain sensory channels, if they don't function in the current body, then the impressions from the past lives, they remain stored at a very deeper level. So in other words, dreams can also become a gateway for those impressions to surface. It's very complex, this phenomenon. It's very complex mechanism. As explaining is also difficult, and people always have their own even if you go and try to research on this whole concept of how do blind people see things in dreams, even there you will see so many conflicting opinions and all. So we don't want to get lost in that debate. We just need to understand that there are still recorded instances, and what is the learning we have to take from it. The key learning is the mind will persist beyond the boundaries of a single lifetime. So your mind will come with you, body to body to body. That is the main lesson we need to keep in mind. So please take care of it. Take good care of it now. Okay? Because you have to, there is no escape. The universe has all the time. Universe has eternity on its side. So you can keep, that is why they say you can, keep cycling through this Janama, Mrityu, Jara, Vyadhi for eternity. No, it is our choice whether we want to suffer for eternity or whether we want to understand the mechanism and get liberation and get free. Okay, so in other words, our life is just one chapter. And how long the book is going to be is entirely up to us. So we are born with a particular chapter, and then we are given the power to write the rest of the chapters. So empowering. Correct? At the same time, it's a big responsibility. It is given to us that we decide now. Either you close the book in this life, or you decide to, write a never-ending sequel. Yeah? Okay. So you can see the major theme, the contrast between those who are not aware of the spiritual identity and those who have developed the eyes of knowledge. So the ignorant, sometimes Krishna uses very strong words like vimuda. Vimuda means utterly deluded. So Krishna says, they live in the false belief that their identity is their body. That they are the people who says, just enjoy. That is the purpose of the life. And who is enjoying? Only the body enjoys, right? So in other words, they identify only with the body. And Krishna says these are vimudas. These are utterly deluded people. Because they are living under this false illusion. And they just don't understand that this body is just a vehicle. And when the soul departs, this body is going to go away. But, the consequences of your actions are going to come with you. It's such a very powerful thing. So that is why they say Vivekha, discrimination is so important, and with discrimination you will get vairagyam, and with vairagyam all other good things follow. Because what happens with viveka, once viveka comes, then you understand that you are not the body. I mean, for practical purposes you are the body, but you understand the absolute truth that I'm not this body, which means that let me not try to just ignore the higher purpose. Let me not try to ignore the higher reality of who I really am. That is the message here. This shift itself will put us on the path to liberation. That is Krishna's message. He says, at least make the shift in your perception that I am that spirit. I am not this body. This body is a temporary home for me, but it is not me. And when that becomes an internalized reality for us, that creates the required shift in perception, and Krishna says it will put you on the path to liberation. That's all. See, in yoga, we use a term called prana. So pranayama comes from prana. And behind the prana, there is the soul itself. So the soul manifests in the body, but that's possible only as long as the prana is flowing in your body. Just like that, like in Buddhism also, they debate this concept of, a soul, whether it exists, doesn't exist. So there is a big, debate even there. But even Buddhism accepts that consciousness is not just material. So that there is no debate. Okay. So in other words, once we acknowledge that the soul is actually the animating principle, the soul is behind everything. Once we understand that, then it will create the required transformation on how we view ourselves. And not just ourselves, also how we view others, how we view everything. So we spoke about a theory called Samadarshana. Now, how will we have Samadarshana? This is how you get Samadarshana. Because once we realize that I am not this body, I am just a spark of the divine, then you are also not the body, you are also just that spark of the divine. So if I'm also the same spark, you are also the same spark, then Samadarshana automatically comes. So then you focus on that which is real. And Krishna is also emphasizing one very, very beautiful thing here. What Krishna says is that he, as the supreme being, he is not just imparting consciousness, but he is directly involved in sustaining our bodies and minds through nourishment. So that is where you saw the word Vaishvanara, which is the digestive fire. So Krishna says, I am also the digestive fire. What does that mean? In other words, he also says that I am working, or I am united with your breath, your prana. So when you breathe, that is Krishna. When you digest food, that is Krishna. So in other words, Krishna is not just giving you some gyan and going away. He is actively involved in your life, every moment of your life. Every breath of your life is happening because of Krishna. Every morsel of food you digest is happening because of Krishna. And that is coming from Krishna himself. Is that not so, comforting and empowering for us to know? So, see, the otherwise you eat something. This is Sadhguru's famous example. He uses it many times. He says, you eat a banana, and after some time that banana becomes you. He says, is that a small thing? Is that not such a miraculous? He says, imagine there was a machine. You can put a banana in the machine, and out of the machine comes Chitralekha. Wouldn't you call it like a extremely magical, miraculous, impossible machine? He says, but that is happening in your body 24/7. So why are you not acknowledging and being aware of that miracle that is constantly happening? So whatever we eat is becoming us. In the West, don't we say in the Western philosophy that we are what we eat? So very, very powerful is to realize, be consciously aware. See, because it's very simple. The same banana, if you put in the mouth of a person that is already died, what is going to happen? that banana is just going to rot in the person's mouth. So, I mean, is it not extremely straightforward thing to reason and say that, there is something going on with food only because of that life? And you can see a living being, but nobody has seen life. Nobody knows what is that life. Life means what? So that is what we call a soul. That is what we call as life force and many different words, but we don't know. It's just a theory, right? We have not seen it. But here Krishna is saying that is him. He's saying he's the one that is causing that banana or a mango or whatever you eat to become you. That is. So should that not keep us constantly in his awareness? Should that not keep us constantly in a feeling of gratefulness for him? Because, if he was not there right now, your digestive function will stop and that's it. If he was not there right now, your breathing will stop. That is the difference between a living being and a dead person, right? A dead person does not breathe. A dead person cannot digest. And Krishna is that's why saying, I am the digestive force. I am the prana. I am the breath force. So the difference between a dead person and a live person is me. So if you are alive, then Krishna is working with you actively every moment. That is the powerful realization we should all get into. So quickly, I want to also touch upon this. In 15.14, there is a mention of 4 types of food. So I just want to quickly explain what that is. Scriptures, food is categorized into 4 types. The first type is the kind of food that you can chew. You have to chew. They are called as bhakshya. So, like for example, fruit or vegetable or bread, we have to chew it. The second kind of food is that which has to be swallowed. They are known as bhojya. Usually liquids, like milk or juice, which we just swallow. The third kind of food is that which has to be licked, and they are known as lehya, like honey or jam. They are something that we usually lick and take in. And fourth is the food that is sucked, which is called choshya. Like for example, sugarcane. Sugarcane is something that you are supposed to chew and suck also. And so these are the 4 types. And by mentioning these 4 types, Krishna is not just trying to give you a dietary classification, but he's reminding us that every nourishment, in other words, our scriptures have categorized that these are the only 4 types of food. And Krishna says, I am the 4 type of food. So basically he's saying, no matter what you eat, the nourishment that you get depends on me. I'm the one who is going to. So there is no food on planet that you can digest without Krishna's grace and without Krishna, active involvement inside your body. So that makes your body sacred, because Krishna is working inside your body every day, every moment. So doesn't that make your body sacred? That is why we say that our body should be treated like a temple. It is a temple, but the divine exists within us. So again, we come back to the concept that although the soul is there, we have a spark of the soul, and although the Supreme is constantly providing guidance and sustenance, okay, all this is good. Beautiful things we have just studied. But then the question again comes, if so many divine things are going on constantly, then why don't we all experience that reality? Like, why don't we all why can't I feel Krishna is here? Why can't I feel that Krishna is digesting? Why don't I get that awareness? It's a very common question that comes. And Krishna gives the answer also. What is the answer? Krishna says, yeah, that is what I've been talking, he says, all along. That is because of the impurity of your mind. You see? See, the example is very beautiful. It's like, Krishna is standing in front of you, but you are wearing, an extremely dark pair of glasses. Now, of course, you can't see. You can't see Krishna. You can see nothing. You're sitting inside a room wearing extremely thick glasses, dark glasses. Or you are wearing glasses which are extremely dusty. They're full of oil and dirt and all of that. So you cannot see. The problem is where? The problem is not whether Krishna exists. The problem is not whether he is in front of you. The problem is not whether you have the ability to see. The problem is this impurity. No? And that is what Krishna is saying. And that is why he says you need to focus on purification of the mind. Because the light of the soul is shining. But you can see it only when your glass is pure. If your glass is full of dust and dirt and oil and muck and all of that, you cannot see it. That is why purification is so important. What kind of dust are we talking about? Because the mind is not a physical glass. Of course, the mind is not a material thing. So what kind of impurities now we are talking about? Negative thoughts, selfishness, selfish desires. Anybody has any ideas? What is the biggest impurity that you can think of? Yes, Simranji?
Ego.
Ego. Chitraji, you are going to say something else?
Lust.
Excellent. So all of this, kama, krodha, moha, lobha, matsarya, these are all vikaras, these are all the impurities. And pride, the biggest of them all. Pride will not even let you acknowledge that your glass is dirty. The pride is the one that says, it's my glass. Why do you care? It's dirty. I will dip it in sand. That's how pride works. So these are the impurities. And Krishna is saying we need to work on them. That is why Krishna went into all the details in the 14th chapter about if you are tamasic, what kind of impurities you get into. If you are rajasic, what kind of impurities comes. I hope you remember some of that. If not, please go ahead and revise. And, that will give you a good idea of what are all the impurities that we need to be aware of. And then if you again go back to 14th chapter, Krishna has given the mechanism also. He has said, the best way is to be mindful of your gunas. Be mindful which guna is being predominant on that we all discussed. That is an exercise we have to do constantly. And if we can even do that, the impurities will automatically get taken care of. Because the more you align with sattva, then the impurities that belong to rajas and tamas will automatically go away. Somebody asked me this question. I think in one of, I think it was it in Kriya Yoga session? I think Ashaji was asking that probably, that sometimes we feel agitated. Sometimes, right? That when we are practicing spirituality, still the mind feels very disturbed sometimes. The mind feels disturbed. Does anybody else feel like that? Has anybody experienced like that? Okay, we have Lakshmi ji also, Sulata ji, but otherwise everybody else feels always calm. Okay, we have Apurva ji also. Okay, excellent. Okay, Smita ji has also come back. So it looks like it's a common phenomenon that people are experiencing some kind of. Okay, so there are one example, one way to explain it is we saw it a few chapters ago about water and say you have a tank full of water. And that water has been in the tank for a long time. So there's a lot of dust and dirt accumulated at the bottom. You're trying to clean that tank. What's going to happen is all the dirt is going to come up. So you shouldn't get discouraged and you shouldn't stop cleaning. Because the very fact you are seeing those impurities basically mean that the cleaning is going on, And there is this very popular Maharaj, he is in Vrindavan, he's a Bhakt of Radha Rani. And that Maharaj, he uses a very simple language to explain. He says, of course he talks in Hindi. He says that आप कमरे को देखते हैं और कमरा साफ लगता है. बोलते हैं मगर आप झाड़ू लीजिए और झाड़ू मारना शुरू कीजिए. फिर देखिए आपको साफ लग रहा था मगर कितना कचरा निकलता है, वो कूड़ा बन गया. बोलता है ठीक है, अभी आपको लगता है कि हमने झाड़ू लगा दिया, अभी कमरा साफ है. वो बोलता है फड़का लीजिए और पोंछिए और देखिए फड़के में कितना गंदगी आती है. So the concept here is just because you see dirt, just because you see that kuda doesn't mean something wrong is going on. It actually means you are progressing. But the difference is, if you are not on the spiritual path, you will be enjoying the kuda. You will be enjoying that impurities. But if you are on the spiritual path, you will be aware that it is an impurity. You will be aware that it is kuda, that it is kachra. And you will focus on how to eliminate that. So I hope that makes it clear, and pretty much that is what Krishna is also talking about. So this is the reason why Krishna says Shitoshna Sukha Dukkada, that whole stanza where he says you should have samatvam. Doesn't matter if your room is clean. Always keep your room clean, but just because you see some dust, don't now start getting freaked out and don't start getting totally dejected and disappointed. He says, be calm. When you are calm, you'll be able to see things the way they are, and you will be able to, get into the mode of awareness and continue your journey without feeling disappointed. Actually, see, people talk about, I know, even I'm not beyond all of that. Even I sometimes have, these negative emotions and negative thoughts. They just, they'll flood my mind. And fortunately, I have this knowledge, so I'm able to deal with it. But there are people who ask, there are people who say that, how can you explain? How can you explain that I'm actually praying? I'm actually thinking about God when I'm doing something which is supposedly so pure, then how can impure thoughts come? That is a question they ask. Not a wrong question. That question is very valid. But Krishna has given an answer for that also, correct? What answer do you think Krishna has given for that? Krishna says that, Indriyanam Manaschasmi, Bhutanam Asmi, Chetana, where he said that, among senses, I am the mind. So this mind that you think is creating a problem is also Krishna only. Okay. And the message given is just be an observer. Just be an observer and don't get into a judgment mode. And whenever you catch those negative thoughts, whenever you catch those negative emotions coming, just understand that it is an indication for you that you are supposed to catch them, get rid of them, and overcome them. See, if you don't see an obstacle, how can you overcome the obstacle? See, we say that liberation means you have to overcome the obstacles of the material world, but you don't even see the obstacles, then how can you say whether you have overcome them? So the fact that you are seeing those impure things come is a good sign. That means now you are at least beginning to see them, and the better thing is you are beginning to understand that they are obstacles. Don't create a bed on top of the kuda. So you are first seeing, and second, you are also able to identify that these are impure, these are negative. That's a progress. So you should feel good about it, and you should continue your journey until that kuda reduces. Eventually it will all go away. Otherwise, everything is fine. I hope this makes sense. And see, there is one particular verse here. How much time do we have? We are all okay. So there is this saying in Srimad Bhagavatam, you will see, where it says that Sri Krishna is inside our heart. Krishna has himself said, and Krishna acts as a loving friend. But for whom? He acts as a loving friend for those who are continuously in his awareness, surrendered. And he takes care of all the inauspicious things from their lives. So even here in the last verse, if you see 15.15, where Krishna says he is also forgetfulness. And some people have a question there. They will say, why Krishna is forgetfulness? So I can explain that also. Because Krishna is in the heart of all beings. Krishna says that I am Smriti, which is memory. I am Jnana, which is knowledge. And I am also Apohana, which is forgetfulness. Now, it may seem all kind of conflicting, contradictory. Why would Krishna be knowledge also? Why would Krishna be forgetfulness also? So the idea is, God is everything, and it depends on us, on which aspect of God we want to realize. So it is said that Krishna is in our heart and he will help us. But if we are in the mode of pride, and if you are in the mode of arrogance, then the same God will also cause forgetfulness. Do you remember this sloka, this stanza this line we discussed earlier that said Vinasha Kale Viprita Buddhi, and where Krishna said that I will turn your mind in the right direction. But that depends on us. If we are receptive, if we have the right mindset, we have the right bhava, that Krishna is helping us go towards light. But otherwise, yes, that same Krishna, because there is nothing beyond Krishna. You cannot say that somehow forgetfulness now belongs to some other entity who is not part of Krishna, because Krishna is everything. Krishna is everywhere. How can there be anything which is not Krishna? So here our Vedanta and whatever we learn in Sanatana Dharma, it has a complete picture. It provides. It doesn't try to hide from something that seems unpleasant. It gives us the full picture. That is the whole idea there. If you have more questions, I'm happy to take it after the class. So I hope all this makes sense, and also I would like to quickly talk about another sloka from Katha Upanishad. You can note it down. Katha Upanishad 2.2.13, and there it talks about the soul, which is very subtle, and it can be realized only by a mind that is directed inward. Again, that Upanishad, that sloka talks about the importance of the mind being in the right condition. Because that sloka will say that the intelligent will see him seated in their selves. Intelligent means those who have the right knowledge will see Krishna seated within us, within ourselves. But those who are not, they can never see it. That is the message here. So the question is not whether Krishna exists or doesn't exist. The question is whether we are able to see, whether we are able to perceive or not. That is the whole question here. So that is why Krishna talks about akritatmano, that is impure and restless mind, versus kritmana, which is pure and calm mind. So Krishna says that is why your mind has to be calm and steady and pure. I hope all this makes sense. And I think I've taken a lot of your time. So I'm very grateful for all of your patience, that you are patiently listening to everything and being supportive. So I think I will stop talking. I've spoken enough today, and I'll open the floors. If you had any comments or questions, please go ahead. Very important lessons and very life transforming lessons, which have to become Vijnana for it to really help us. It cannot just stay theoretical. Yes, Sulata ji.
Guruji, we know that this spiritual knowledge or spiritual progress is carried forward birth after birth, isn't it? Like into the
Yes.
next lifetime. So,
Yes.
like, is this the way, like, because it purifies our mind, it elevates us in terms of consciousness. So that is how it is carried forward. Like the soul carries the.
No, I mean it's like everything is carried forward. So your sanskaras go with you, but but the point is, material knowledge. There is no such thing as physics and chemistry that will go with your body. What goes with your body are the impressions. What goes with your body is the mind. So spiritual knowledge means what? Spiritual knowledge means knowledge that helps purify your mind, knowledge that helps clear away your negative sanskaras. So definitely when you go to the next birth, you are going with that mind and that. So that is how you say that spiritual knowledge goes with you. So it doesn't necessarily mean the text will go with you, but so the positive effects will go with you. But the converse is also true. If you are like demonic, and if you have all negative tendencies, and if you're enjoying all of them, then unfortunately those tendencies also go with you.
Yeah. That's why it is said, bhakti, as you said, bhakti is so empowering. Bhakti has that power of clearing your sanskaras. Like our sanskaras will be converted as sanskaras of bhakti, purified. So that's how, we will be purified.
Exactly. As you may remember, Sulata ji, when we studied Bhakti Sutra, we learned that bhakti is both the cause and bhakti is also the effect. Bhakti is the path also,
And
bhakti is the
means,
destination also. So, bhakti will help us clear our sanskaras and purify our mind, and a purified mind will develop more bhakti, and so it's a beautiful positive cycle that we can all be part of. So yes, thank you for
the
reminding this.
means and yeah.
Yes. Anybody else had anything to add, or feel free, it's your satsang. If you are more comfortable, I can stop recording too, but I think some of these answers may help others too, because sometimes when somebody else asks a question, we feel like, yes, I also had the same question, so okay.
Guruji, I just wanted to add that this analogy, we are what we eat, is not only true in the form of the food, but also like everything else. The information, thoughts, everything like that we put in ourselves. So eating not only in the form of physical food, but eating as if like consuming. I hope you're getting my point.
Yeah. I mean, basically, again, it depends on when we say, I am what I eat, what is that I? That's what we discussed in this set of slokas. So here, we think that I comes from our identification, our mind and our ego. And as we just saw in this same set of slokas, all the inputs, they're all feeding the mind only. So you're right. And then that mind becomes you, or the illusion of you. So yes, so we have to be very careful. See, you cannot you cannot try to just go and control the senses. Like, in other words, you cannot make your eyes see only good things. I mean, it's difficult. Seeing. I'm not talking about what you internalize or how you process it, but the eyes will see anything that comes in front of it. You see? But what you need to be careful about is how that is being processed by the mind. Where you see a juicy fruit, do you process it as, I have to eat it, it's for me? Or do you process it as, no, I would like to offer it to God? Or do you process it as, I want to sell it and make some money? There are a million ways to process that information. So when Krishna talks about purification of the mind, that is why that is more important. So we cannot always control all the impulses that go in. Navadware. So Krishna said we live in this fort of 9 gates, and so that is a fact. But then, how do you process that information? What part of that you process? What part of that you don't? That is all a function of the mind, and that is why so much emphasis is put on the mind. And what Krishna scientifically explains is there are some inputs which are going to disturb the mind. So it's going to be very difficult until we overcome, until we become really a yogi. For example, tamasic food. Like if you are under the influence of alcohol, for example, there is no way you can drink alcohol and, say that my mind is strong enough to process it. Oh, nahi hoga, uske liye we have a long way to go. So Krishna has said, what are the things you avoid? Because otherwise they make your journey, the mind is already turbulent. And in that turbulence, if you want to add more, then it's going to become a losing battle. So Krishna has given us that framework that says what you should avoid and what you should do. And that way, yes. So thank you for bringing that up. Smitaji, were you trying to say something?
Yes, I just had a question, Guruji. Earlier in the session, you mentioned about samskara, the impressions sometimes showing up in dreams, right? And it could be from several past lifetimes. But how will we know that, Guruji? Like that impression, let's say, I'll take a positive example. Let's say you see a temple, or you go and pray somewhere, something like that. How will we know that that is something that has happened in the past versus that could be something as a blessing, or you need to do it in this birth. Like, I'm just trying to understand, like, how do we differentiate that? Will that be revealed in the dream, or because I mean,
Yeah.
I hope I'm making myself clear. Like, sometimes I have heard what you said in the past also, like so many impressions can reveal in their dreams, but one may not know whether that has already passed or whether that is something we need to do in the current lifetime. How will we know that difference?
Excellent question. This question comes often, and I think I personally tried to wrestle with this myself. But the concept is that you, in the dream, absolute majority of dreams, in the dreams you only see things that you have already seen somewhere, or you read about, or you heard about. So it's you creating those visions yourself. It could be from this birth or past birth, doesn't matter, because these are all just impulses. See, today I'm looking at Smita. I'm just giving a gross example.
Yeah.
Don't read much into it, but say I'm looking at Smita and I'm saying that, oh, there is this beautiful woman in front of me. Now, that thought, see, I'm seeing you is one thing, but when I see you, what I'm thinking, how I'm perceiving you, those are all creating impressions, in my mind. So later on, I may have a dream. It is possible I'm not seeing Smita, but it's possible I'm seeing some woman and I have the same emotions. Beautiful woman, So that feeling that you see, they're all a function of these impressions that you have. Because the same woman you see, you may feel afraid. One person may feel afraid, one person may feel, she's attractive, one person may feel very apprehensive, one person may feel, warm and, something motherly. It depends on our impressions for the same, so what I'm trying to say is, first of all, there is no formula that says how do you say whether it is, but
Yeah.
the way I have tried to work it out for myself, because for me, dreams have played a big role in my life. And so the way I have worked it out is, when I wake up from a dream, am I waking up with some insight that I did not have earlier, or am I waking up with just some experience? Experience is just either positive or negative. It could be fear, or it could be elation and love or warmth. They are all just experiences. But when I wake up, am I also waking up with any new insight? And if any time I feel like I've woken up with the new insight that I did not have before, then I take that as a divine guidance, or I take that as some communication happening through my dream. So this is my own personal formula. So I don't watch for it. If it works for you, I'll be happy. So
I mean, thank you, Guruji. So many times, yes, you see something that you've seen, but sometimes you see things that, or people that you've never met,
yes,
that you've never seen, and
See,
those
so the
times
way
are
the mind
very
works, Smita ji.
confusing.
So what I have tried to understand myself, the way the mind works is, it focuses on the impressions. So, for example, I didn't do a good. I didn't explain very well, but like, if I see you and if I feel that you are beautiful, the impression is that of beauty. So tomorrow in my dream, the mind will make you realize beauty, but it could be any image of any woman. So you may say that I have not seen that woman, but it is like, that doesn't matter. It is creating any, but that evokes the same
Okay, I
feeling,
got it.
because
Yeah, I got it.
yeah,
Thank
you
you,
see,
Guruji. Yes.
so
Yeah.
ये ऐसा अपना mind काम करता है, but there are times when I have woken up and I have felt the urge to actually go and write down, because I now have a new insight that I just didn't have, and I feel like as if I have divine, communication happening. So that's the simple formula that I have been using for a while. So thank you for asking that. So in short, this is another reason why purification is important, because the more your mind is purified, the lesser of this noise, the lesser of these, impulses that are getting stored, and then it will all be aligned, and then if you dream, almost every other dream should be some divine experience, So that is why I would say that purification and perception. So purification causes perception of the divine, I mean. So if you want to perceive the divine, you need purification. These two pieces, they have to go together.
Yeah. Two sides of a coin.
Yeah.
Thank you, Guruji. Very much.
So Hare Krishna, thank you. I think a lot of very profound learnings today. I will request you all to go through the notes again and recording again. This is one of those sessions that you should probably revisit and make sure that this knowledge is internalized, because it's going to have a direct impact on your everyday life and your life journey. Okay, so Hare Krishna, thank you so much.